welcome to the Haru Nakabi podcast. I'm Bruce Henderson, Associate Editor of Tachiai, and with me is our man in foreign lands, Josh, who speaks to us now from Osaka. Hello, Josh.
Konnichiwa, Bruce. Konnichiwa, Tachiai.
So thanks for taking the time early Sunday morning, which is day 8, to join us on the podcast. We were actually watching the stream a little bit earlier to watch some of the Janakuchi matches. So you've actually been at the Edion Arena for day 6. Why don't you tell us, given your impressions so far, what's been the biggest sort of surprise for you for this Basho?
Yeah, well, let me just say first, I love a little Hattori Sakura in the morning when I wake up. Who doesn't? Yeah, it's great. It's great. Live sumo is always fantastic. Getting a chance to go to the Basho is always fantastic. Published a bit about that on Tachiai yesterday. Some folks had some really great reactions. I think it's been a really good tournament. I think, as we were just talking about a little bit off the air, we had some changes that are not really changes, right? We're used to seeing these guys in the Joy, these top rank and filers at the top of them. Maegashira just absolutely gets stomped. And, you've got these waves of new Rikishi coming through, and we've been talking about the change in sumo, whether it's the freshman group, kind of headlined by the Yutakayamas of the world, or, the tadpoles headlined by Mitakayumi and Takakeisho and Onosho, or this Pixies group, this little man sumo, headlined by Ishiura, the Frank Black of the sumo world. But regardless of these waves that are coming through, we started to see this change over the last year, and then this tournament, everything's going as the sumo gods want it, right?
Yeah,
because
revert to prior.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's happening is, these guys are reaching the top of Maegashira, and they're getting beat according to the plan by the Yokozuna and the Ozeki, and that's not something that we've been seeing over the last few tournaments. There were questions going into this tournament, especially over the health of Hakuho. You point out in the last podcast, should we expect to see Kakuryu finish all 15 days? We had health questions about Mitakayumi, and we had been seeing upsets over the course of the last few tournaments, and that's what's led to a lot of these first-time champions. But, when you think back a couple of years and you think back to the time when we had 2 more Rikishi in the Sanyu ranks, and we had Haruma Fuji, acting as the sort of the great regulator. Sure, he served up a bunch of kinboshi, but more times than not, he did what he was supposed to do as a yokozuna. You had Kiseno Sato, one of the most consistent ozeki, really, that there ever was as an ozeki. There weren't a lot of wins to come by, and over the last year, that's really changed. This tournament, we're sitting here on day 8 with a number of guys who are 0-7, and Tochinoshin on 1-6.
Nishikigi, Shodai, all at 0-7.
Yeah.
So Tochio's on at 1-6. It's really it's some tough going up in the top 4 Maegashira slots. Neither Komusubi has a winning record right now either, so they've got their work cut out for them week 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so the thing that really surprised me the most, I guess I'll say it, is Kota Shogiku. So he'd been on a fairly predictable fade out route for the last year and a half at least, and he comes into Haru. He's incredibly focused. He is dead on his sumo, and he has been extraordinarily effective. And I have to admit, an absolute joy to watch. So I don't know how far he's going to be able to take it, because I know his body is not in the best of shape. But by golly, it sure is fun to watch a Genki Koto Shogiku really just throw people around left, right, and sideways.
Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't actually read your preview for day 6 before I went to the Basho, but I was sitting next to a family of folks from Australia, and it was their first time seeing sumo, so they were asking me questions, and a couple times throughout the day, I would say, this is what this guy's known for. Watch for this when this guy takes the doyo. And so it's funny because you and I had the same reaction when we saw Koto Shogiku coming up against Aoyama, and I turned to him and I said, you might want to cover the kid's eyes for this one. This could be a little X-rated. But yeah, it's interesting when you talk about him. You mentioned this a lot in your commentary and also comments when people ask you about, why isn't a certain guy doing well, or why aren't they performing at a certain level that we would expect. And the thing with Koto Shogiku is, because he has that one technique, for so many wrestlers, being able to transmit power to ground and really execute on their footwork is important. For him, it's even more important because the move that's his only move really relies on that more than anything. He needs to be able to get set in order to execute that gaboriori, right? And so, it's curious because the one day this tournament that he lost, really it almost looked like a Butsukari session with Aoyama in the sense that he took the hit. He didn't get set. His feet weren't set, and he just was pushed right back and out, right?
Aoyama really knew exactly what to do about that.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Aoyama. I mean, he has had some strong tournaments over the last couple of years, but he has opened solidly against some pretty fierce competition. He's 6-1. He's won off the pace. He's even with both Yokozuna Kakuryu and Ozeki Goedo and Takayasu. I mean, what do you think is possible for the big Bulgarian in week 2?
Yeah, well, let's give credit to Andy where it's due. I mean, Andy, he'll come out with some wild predictions sometimes. Obviously, we predict that Tamawashi Yusho far in advance. So, who knows what will happen with Aoyama? But he called that before the tournament. I'm not a huge fan of Aoyama's style of sumo. I find it. I wouldn't say I find it very delightful to watch, but it's effective. When he's on, it's effective. And I think it was his match on day 7, and for some reason I'm spacing on who the opponent was on day 7. But he got right in there, and I think we'll both bring it up. It was Takara Fuji, who he has a hoodoo on. He's beaten him 18 times out of 21. And he got right in there with a plan to get right in under the armpits and shoved him back, and it was like 2 or 3 hits, and he was done. Yeah. He's really in a good, confident space. You can see it in his sumo, and he has a game plan, and he's able right now to keep people off of his mawashi, and get him away. He's a pusher thruster. That's what he does, and if he can land those blows, he's going to be successful. Week 2 will probably provide him with a few more challenges as he gets pulled a little bit up the Banzuke. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets a good 10 or 11, but someone down there needs to challenge in the Yusho race, so why not him?
So you did mention Tamawashi in your in your last set of comments. So you were there for day 6 when he took on Hokuto Fuji, and I vividly remember Hokuto Fuji came out strong, pushed him around until something just changed when Tamawashi had his heels on the Tarawa, and suddenly he comes roaring back. And since that day 6 match, he's back to Tamawashi the Fierce. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Tamawashi now.
Yeah, it's curious. I mean, we said before the Basho, we thought he would come out really genki because we didn't have a Jungyo. And, I had felt when we did the last podcast, look, the guy's 34 years old. He's not, a 20-year-old kid. No disrespect to Takahesho, but like winning his first Yusho and then, oh my God, I got all these parties. I got to meet all these sponsors. He's met sponsors in his life. He's been to parties in his life. I think by this stage, he probably know how to deal with it. But I think you reported he came out before and said, I haven't been able to train much. I'm a little rusty. And it showed those first few days. You want to talk about ring rust. He was probably the guy over the course of, what you would call, Act 1 and what you do call Act 1 on the site. Those first, 5 days of the Basho, he was, one of the most rusty looking guys out there. But, he knows how to execute his style of sumo. He's very good at it. We can talk about Hokuto Fuji specifically in a minute, but I think, when it comes to Tamawashi, I mean, he's come out and said he wants to be able to not necessarily defend the Yusho, but win another Yusho. It's important for him to win a second Yusho. He's technically on an Ozeki run. He's got a great opportunity here, and I think if he's able to shake off that rust and execute his sumo, there's not really telling, where he can take that. But week 2 is going to present some much bigger challenges for him as a Sekiwake. And so, I think it's just good news to see him coming back into form on day 6 and day 7, because he's going to need to execute that style of sumo over the second week.
So, who else who's really impressed me has been Goeido. Goeido's in front of his hometown fans. He is on form. Goeido form, when he's doing good sumo, is lightning fast. There is no defensive option. He's 100% committed to offense, and it usually just completely overpowers anything or anyone that stands in his way. What's it like to be in Edion in Osaka when Goeido mounts the doyo?
It's amazing, and it's, to your point, that's fan-pleasing sumo. So you're in an atmosphere already where he's a local hero. He's the top-ranked guy from Osaka. He's an Ozeki. He's won a Yusho before. NHK, the guys keep saying, it's been 58 years since an Osaka Rikishi won a championship here in Osaka. People want to see that. People are chanting for him, as I'm sure everybody can hear on TV. It's a really, really positive atmosphere. Unfortunately, I was there on the one day that he lost, and he slipped, and he lost Daisho. But
that
people here,
Toshi was a big disappointment.
Yeah, it really was. But he's, in a way, when he executes his style of sumo, and as we know from him, that's a big if and a big when. But when he does, he's kind of like the anti-Kakuryu, right? Kind of very defensive sumo, and wins and loses sometimes going backwards. To your point, he's only got one direction when he and that's going forward, and that's attacking. That's what people want to see, and it's what he's good at. And so hopefully, again, as the schedule toughens up for him a little bit in this second week, and he has to fight the other Ozeki, and he has to fight the Yokozuna, he will continue to do that, because you know what? If he can continue to do that style of sumo, I think the Yokozuna can be got, and I think that and probably at least one of the other Ozeki can be got, and it's a big opportunity for him.
You mean Tochinoshin?
I couldn't possibly comment. Yeah, of course. He's rough first week for Tochinoshin, but he's still in the driver's seat.
Oh man, it's going to be a nail biter down to the wire for Tochinoshin fans. His heart's in it, but his body is nowhere close to being ready. Absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So who else has impressed you so far?
Yeah, I think Hokuto Fuji's been great. I know we sit here, it's day Nakabi, we look at the record and we're like 2-5. Like, why are we talking about this guy? But he's had, first of all, the hardest possible start, and I think 2-5. He's come through it very creditably. No one else, if you think about it, has had to face 7 people more or higher ranked than themselves in the first 7 days. Even Chiyoshoma got a visitor from Juryo down at the bottom of the Bansuke. So the thing to remember is that all these upsets, these are all upsets when he wins in these matches. Out of these, he's been able to pull off 2 upsets out of 7. So if he loses, it's a free hit. We're not expecting him to win these matches. Yep. And so, look, if he pulls out 6 from the last 8, it's a great result. If he even pulls out 4 or 5 and remains, at the top of the rank and file, just drops down a little bit, you'd have to say that for a first trip to Sanyaku, results-wise, it's a good result. But, hopefully in the second week, we don't see him get his head down, because he started really, really strongly. If you think back to his time when he came into the top division, and they got injured, and he was kind of like where Tomokaze is now. He was a guy who never had a Makuuchi before he came in, and he had this whole head of steam, and he never even did get a Makuuchi before he hit the Joy. Before he got injured, for me, I always thought like this was always a guy with Ozeki talent, right? And I think now, you mentioned the match against Tamawashi, where he just really, really fought. I think it was the same in his match against Takayasu, where he was just really, really, really fighting, going forward, and displaying good sumo, and showing a lot more heart and a lot more energy and good attacking technique. than we've seen before at the top level against some of these guys. So again, hopefully he can finish well because for me, I think he's shown that he can perform and compete at this level, even if he doesn't necessarily have the wins on the board right now. What we don't want to see is for him to mentally switch off and then end up going 4-11 or whatever. That's not what we want. But if he keeps if he keeps doing this style of sumo, we should see 6, 7, 8, and it's all good.
Yep, great. So let's go from ups to downs. Let's talk about some of the Rikishi who've really had terrible basho. Who would you pick off the top of your head as your number one candidate?
There's 3 number one candidates. It's the Isanumi duo of Ikkyoi and Nishikigi, and then Abi, and for very different reasons. Nishikigi overwhelmed, I think, finally at the top level of the division, having to fight these top guys coming out 0-7, and I think after the last 2 basho, we would have hoped that maybe he could maintain that sort of 6, 9, 7, and 8, 8 and 7 momentum that he had going on. Ikkyoi is injured. As he has been. It's so sad. Everybody knows I'm a big Ikkyoi fan. I love Ikkyoi. But it's creditable to him that or silly that he continues to get up there. Depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
But I think, what's been a real sad thing for me is, compared to last year when I was here in Osaka, there's been far less merch at the venue in his hometown. It feels like there's less people, cheering. Maybe part of it's because Goeido's doing so well that, he doesn't get the spotlight. But and I felt bad. I forgot to bring my Ikkyoi towel on day 6. It's here in the hotel. Because he needs all the support that he can get right now. It's hard enough just for him to get up there in the dojo.
He's a walking trip to the hospital, and I wish him better health. I really do.
I think he's going to need, maybe 3 more wins to stay in the division. Right now, he's as we speak, he's 1-6, and 3-12 would be pushing it. So I think he's got to pull out at least 3 more to keep it going. But obviously, there are bigger concerns with him. Abi. So the day that I was there, day 6 is the day that he executed that flying henka, which was fantastic to watch. When you're there live, something like that is just, it gets the crowd going and it's exciting, and Abi's exciting. But you made a point that I think is really important, which is that his lack of progress being able to execute that Abi-Zumo, Oshizumo, the way that we're used to seeing, hopefully can be the thing that every time it doesn't come off, maybe there's something that clicks there and it pushes him towards starting to execute a Mawashi element or starting to really, develop that. And, he did finish that henka with a throw on day 6.
Yes, he did.
But then
a double throw, actually. He took out himself, or he took out his opponent and the gyoji.
The gyoji as well. But then he'd come back, and on day 7, he loses to Ichinojo with that usual two-handed thrust, and he doesn't go anywhere. And what it kind of reminded me of is when you see, you remember in those old Looney Tunes cartoons where you see the character runs off the edge of the cliff, and then they're still running in the air, but they're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden they're whoop, and then they just fall down. The legs are still going, and then all of a sudden they're off the mountain. That's kind of what it's like because it's those hands are going, the motor's going, but he's not going anywhere. And then it's, all of a sudden it just gives the impetus to whoever it is that he's fighting. So he's really got to turn it around here in the second week.
All right. Well, I have to bring up one other, the bane of my sumo fandom, which is Shodai. So Shodai also is in the 0-win column, but I know he's probably going to book a promotion, even if he goes 0-15. Sorry, I'm being mean about Shodai. Shodai gets my goat sometimes. He's looking really disappointed, really dejected. The guy's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of great sumo technique, but I think he's lost the battle up here right now, and he's got to get that back in place. He really does.
Yeah, and he's already fought I think some of the matches that might have been winnable for him when you think about
Yeah.
who the people are that, may be susceptible to, it's hard to be susceptible to his Tachiai, but like one of the things about him is that he starts so poorly, and then when he wins, it's because he's able to finish strongly. He has a good second or third move. And so against someone like an Ichinojo or even a Kakuryu, where, they can be a little more defensive, a lot's been made of the fact that Ichinojo's won all of his matches, kind of going backward or by pulling. Someone like Shodai really shouldn't be susceptible to that kind of sumo.
Yep.
But he has been, and it's against those guys that he hasn't really put up the kind of fight. He hasn't really challenged for the white star. So, Chiyotairyu, there's another one. After the Tachiai, he doesn't really have anything. So if you're someone who's able to stand up and take take that hit at the Tachiai, you should be able to take control of that kind of match. So, we're sitting here going, oh, Shodai, well, he's got a really tough fixture list, but he should have won 2 or 3 of those.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say he should be beating the Yokozuna, but he should have won 2 or 3 of those so far. I agree with you.
So out of the Goose Egg crew, there's one of them that I think actually has a credible chance of still getting a Kachikoshi, and that's Kaisei, right? Kaisei's big enough, he's strong enough, and I think he's nearly done with his ugly matches. Is that I think he could not, let's call it a mild Makikoshi. He could still go 7 and 8 if he has not given up mentally, which I think sometimes happens to him. Thoughts about Kaisei, Josh?
Well, I have to kind of eat it on this one because I said in the last podcast right before the tournament, he was my pick to do really, really well this time. I certainly thought coming up against the top guys that he would have done better. I mean, to as far as day 8, coming into day 8, he'd faced everybody in the top 3 ranks. So he still has the 2 Komusubi to come. But then apart from that, it's all people ranked below him. I think that he's certainly better than his record indicates. But he's also been someone who's never really been able to challenge the Yokozuna. So it's not super surprising that he would have a nasty looking record at this point. But I agree with you. Out of the 3 guys with the goose egg, and even if you want to throw in 1 and 6 Tochiozan into the bargain, I think Kaisei is the best equipped to deal with week 2, and talent and technique wise, he's someone who we would want to see sticking around there. But yeah, he's got a hard fight on his hands. Mitakeumi day 8, probably Hokuto Fuji not long after that. So if he can pull out even 6.
So you brought up Mitakeumi, and everyone got lulled, or I think misguided, I guess is what I'll call it, by his early performance. Takayumi is nursing a serious injury to his knee that has not been treated. And so, I see some people commenting that, what happened to Takayumi. Frankly, the fact that he's been able to grab 3 wins, given his Torakumi so far, is kind of damn impressive that the man is willing to set aside probably what's a lot of discomfort and still perform pretty good sumo. How did he look?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I totally agree with you because he has not looked incredibly hobbled. I mean, he's not able to execute it 100%, right? Yep. That's clear, and we know that, and it's been clear from some of the losses that he's put up. But, the fact that he's been able to get up there at all, I mean, we expected coming into the tournament, day 1 and 2, he's got Kakuyu and Takayasu. Yep. 2 very different results, but those are hard matches. And, he managed to win on day 1 against Kakuryu, and he managed it doing very, very good, very attacking sumo. And he has displayed attacking sumo. A couple of these losses, he lost to Tochinoshin. I mean, those are 2 guys who've practiced together a lot in the past. Yeah, I think Tochinoshin has a very decent record against Takayumi. Goedo, very attacking sumo. Hokuto Fuji's done really well. So, I don't think in his condition there's too much shame in that. I think going into week 2, he still does have to face Hakuho. But again, apart from that, I mean, he will have had most of his difficult matches. And if, it's funny, sometimes we talk about, Hakuho at 70 or 80% is always going to be better than most guys 100%. And I
Yeah,
think
and that's true this
that
time too.
probably, yeah, and I think it's probably, it's a weird comparison, but I think, Mitakayumi at about 80%, he's a level above these guys who are down at like Maegashira 5, right? He's going to be at 80%. He should, 70%, he should be able to still put up some wins against guys who are ranked quite a bit lower. And he's going to start to see those guys as we come into the middle of week 2 and the back half of week 2, because he's not going to be in the Yusho race. He's not going to, his Hakuho match, I would imagine, would be sooner rather than later. So if he can hang in there, and if that knee can hold up a couple more days, he should get some chances to put up a few more wins.
Cool. So let's step out of the Edion Arena and let's talk about Osaka. So Osaka, if you're a foodie, is paradise.
Oh my God! Yeah.
I would expect that, given the write-up you've shared with us on the blog, that you've enjoyed some food in Osaka. Tell us a little bit about your culinary adventures, Josh. Let us live vicariously through your taste buds.
Well, yeah, I was a bit critical of the food at the Edion Arena, comparatively speaking, because Osaka, to your point, it is one of the best food cities, not only in Japan but in the world. It's an incredible place, and there are things that it is known for. There are things that it is not known for, but it just executes very, very well. I'm a huge ramen fan, but whether you're a ramen guy, sushi guy, a takoyaki guy, especially, okonomiyaki, there's so many great things to be had here. A few things. I mean, there have been, yesterday I just went for, a quick breakfast in a coffee shop, a couple of train stops away from where I'm staying. And, I thought I'd been done eating, and I stumbled out there into the Kuromon Ichiban market, which is just this incredible market. I hadn't even been expecting to walk out into it. And it's where a lot of the restaurateurs and vendors from Osaka sometimes go to get, their buys for the day. And, just a lot of amazing, street hawkers and vendors, selling stuff, people grilling up unagi right there on the street.
Oh, man.
And, just slicing up salmon and, just grilling all kinds of, grilling Kobe beef and grilling scallops.
Stop
and grilling
it, man.
all kinds of stuff.
Stop it,
I know,
man.
this is a pornographic podcast.
You're making it hurt.
It's insane. So that's been fantastic, just to be able to walk around there and go, wow, okay, I'm having that, and I'm having that, and I'm having that. You kind of, go from sort of veering from like, this is amazing, this is the most incredible moment of my fooding experience, to like, I cannot possibly eat anymore. This is horrible, and I have to stop now. But one of the things that's been a really great asset, not long before I showed up, there's this guy. He's an American guy. He has a very strong name. His name's Abram Plout, and he goes by Ramen Beast, or in Japanese, Ramen Bisto. And he's based up in Tokyo. He's partnered, I think, with one of the more prominent ramen restaurateurs up in Tokyo. But he has this app, Ramen Beast, and so he just goes around, all around Japan, specifically Tokyo, Osaka, the big centers, and not always in the tourist areas. Sometimes, he says a lot of the great places to get great ramen in Japan are on the outskirts of the city, because ramen isn't always a profitable business. So these, the really great guys who have been honing their craft for like 60 years are located on the outskirts of the city where the rent is cheaper. And he finds the best shops, and he posts them, on his Instagram and on his app. And so for me, when I get out of the Basho on day 6, for example, I pull up the app and I'm looking at, hey, where's somewhere that this guy's approved that's in the environs of the Edion Arena? Let's go check it out. And I did. I checked out this place called Menya Jokoru, not Jokoryu, Jokoru, which is a few blocks away from the Edion Arena, and there's a short wait, but the guys are super friendly, and it was one of the best bowls of ramen I've ever had in my life. So
Nice.
Yeah, credit to Ramen Beast, and that's what happens in Osaka. You just stumble into a place, and
There you go.
it's one of
Tachiai
your best
followers,
meals.
go get the Ramen Beast app. Go feed your way through Japan.
Absolutely.
Outstanding. So we're coming sort of to the end of our list of topics. Who do you think, given now that we're at halfway, what's your gut tell you who's going to be coming down to the last 3 or 5 days in the thick of the Yusho race?
Well, Terunofuji could be in the thick of a Yusho race, but
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about Terunofuji for fans who didn't know. Terunofuji, the former Ozeki, just completely damaged his knees beyond the point of being useful. He started having problems with diabetes, and he completely dropped out of sumo and has not been seen on a doyo for at least a year. Well, I think it was read to him that you either start competing or you're going to be going back through Meizumo, and nobody wants that when you're a former Ozeki. So up he comes, and he looks like complete hell. He looks like he's been sleeping in the back of a freight car, and he's all lumpy and he looks out of shape. But he's now 4 wins and 0 losses, and he is in the Yusho race for Jonadan, which is the second lowest division. And frankly, even the absolutely gargantuan Sakae Fuji did not provide that much of a challenge to our former kaiju. Josh, thoughts about Terunofuji, man? What a mess.
Yeah, he's a mess, but he's shown that he still has enough. I mean, which he should in the second lowest division, to be able to knock out a lot of these guys who I think I said it before, but you can see in the faces and the way that some of these guys are approaching dealing with him. I mean, this is the highlight bout of your career to date. If you're coming up against a guy like you would never expect, whether you're one of these guys who's like a lifetime Sandanme, Jonidan, Rikishi, to be facing someone who is a former Ozeki. Just the luck of the draw on something like that, or the unluck of the draw, is astonishing. Obviously the schedule will get a little more difficult over the course because, the way the bottom divisions work, he has to face someone who's 4-0, and then, if he wins that, 5-0, and then if he wins that, 6-0. So, he will at least start to face people who are in form, but, you can only beat what's in front of you. So far, he's done that. I think the bigger challenges will start to come. I mean, we've seen from following, and you especially from following Waka Ichiro over the course of the past couple of years, is there is a big difference from being at the bottom of Jonidan and then being at the bottom of Sandanme, and just even in terms of the energy level that these guys bring, and that's the one thing Terunofuji doesn't have right now. So, yeah.
All right, you mentioned it. I've got to bring it full circle. A possible May matchup between Waka Ichiro and Terunofuji. What would happen there?
Oh man, well, I mean, Waka Ichiro's got a little bit of work to do in order to make sure that can happen. He's got
no disrespect to probably one of the boldest moves I've seen in sports in the last 10 years of just, hey, I'm going to go to Japan and become a Rikishi. But I'm sorry, I would find that a highly interesting match. And yes, we know that Terunofuji is a force of nature, but damn, that'd be fun.
Well, he doesn't have I don't think he has the energy that Waka Ichiro has displayed in the first 4 days, certainly. Yep. But he's had to be, to that earlier point, he's had to. He's coming up against guys in that next division who have more nous, have a little bit more about them. And that's going to be the challenge for Terunofuji, after this tournament, one way or the other, whether he wins the Yusho or not.
So let's talk about the top division. Give me a couple names who you think are going to be in it the last 5 or the last 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at this point, we probably have as many as 12 names in the Yusho race. It seems like a lot, but for me, when you look at who's at the top right now, as we record this, it's Hakuho and Ichinojo are the two undefeated guys. So I would say that anybody with 2 losses or less right now is pretty much in the field. You can never really bet against Hakuho. I remember the last time we did this podcast in the middle of a tournament at Hatsu. At that point, he was 8 or 9-0, and he would go on to be 10-0. And then, obviously injuries being what they were, I don't think we ever would have imagined he would have dropped that on day 14. And he still doesn't look that good. He's doing what he can every day to win, and some days getting away with it, some days not. But it would not be surprising to see him drop a couple of matches. Ichinojo has not really been bothered too much so far, but he has a history of these, these mental blocks
Yep.
that stop him from winning winnable matches. So you look at the top and you're like, well, there's losses in these guys. I mean, right now, you'd say that those two and probably Goedo are the top three names. I think it would, honestly, I think it would be good for sumo for any of those three guys to win. I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that Takayasu, with some of the sumo he's displayed, I mean, again, maybe he hasn't been pushed that hard, but for him to be sitting there with one loss, he's very much in the mix. Kakayu's 6 straight wins. Goedo is doing really well, as I said. I don't really take, as I think most people probably wouldn't, Aoyama or Koto Shogaku seriously for the Yusho, but yeah, I mean, beyond them, there aren't too many folks where I can say it's probably going to happen. I think when you think about Taka Keisho, we're really looking for him to get his 10 wins and force the folks in the NSK to have to make their apparently difficult decision about whether or not to promote him again. I think that's really his biggest challenge right now. And
the NSK, I agree.
Yeah. So you think of other big names, they're all just trying to get their kachikoshi. So yeah, Hakuho, Ichinojo, Goedo, Henan Hara.
I'll go out on
a limb. Goedo, right? But
I'll say it may in fact come down to Takayasu and Goedo. Is that I am eagerly awaiting Takayasu's Ozeki and Yokozuna matches. There's been a subtle but pretty profound change to his sumo over the last 3 or 4 days. And I think he may be in a sort of winning state now, right? Or we'll have to see what it does.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you tell me, but it seemed to me that he still kind of leads with the shoulder blast, but it does not seem to be as pronounced as it was in the past.
Right. It was his sole focus. He had gone very Chiyotairyu, but now he's sort of back to the same sumo that took him to Ozeki. And it's fascinating to correlate that on the timeline. Is that the former Kisuna Sato, his whole life now is training Takayasu, and that entire period where Takayasu was doing the shoulder blast and some of the chaotic sumo was when Kisuna Sato was hurt and trying to rest up and heal naturally. Well, now Kisuna Sato no longer gives a damn, and he is he's got to get his deshi over the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's starting to pay dividends. I can't wait to see not only what happens for the rest of Haru, but for Natsu as well.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Kisuna Sato because, again, we go back to when we had this same conversation in the middle of the Haru Basho. He had just retired.
Yep.
And I had thought at that point, well, maybe this is kind of weird, but when we get to Haru, that'll really be the first time when, it'll kind of really hit home. Kisuna Sato is not the Yokozuna. He's gone. He's not really in the picture.
Yep.
But no, I mean, he's more present than he's been in a long time. You mentioned him and all the hype and the stories and everything from him, putting his sole focus on Takayasu and the fact that that's been in the media, and you watch on TV, the camera, whenever Takayasu takes the doyo, the camera immediately finds, Araiso Yakata, the former Kisuna Sato, in the crowd watching him on. There's the giant thank you Kisuna Sato posters that are in the arena where fans can go up, and it's really nice that they can write their thank you to him. But commemorative merchandise is being sold, and the NSK is going to milk that as long as they can.
Of course, and they should.
And they should, but we're heard their rumblings that they're a little nervous perhaps about ticket sales down the line, so they're going to keep wheeling him out. He was on TV yesterday doing co-commentary. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still a very public figure for quite a while, but especially as we go into the next tournament, Natsu, I'd be curious, do they still have the Arigato Kisuna Sato posters up for people to sign, and will he still be around? But it's interesting because the last couple of years there's been a lot of focus on him, but he hasn't been. Where is he? He's not been around. Is he training? What's going on? It's like camera crews rolling up outside the Heya, asking him what's going on. Whereas now he's everywhere. He's and it's interesting because I think you had asked the question to me last time, like, So the next time we see him, he's going to be one of those blue jacket guys that you kind of see around. And he's that, and
Yeah,
he's
he
so
is.
much more. I mean, who knew, right?
Well, I'm looking forward to when he's part of the judging team, because that'll be fun to watch too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
Okay.
no one. Well, there's no more stoic than him, so it works out well.
So with that, let's wrap it up. Josh, thank you very much for joining us Sunday morning from Osaka. You're going day 11. I can't wait to see what day 11 is all about. And thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
And everyone, thanks for joining us on the podcast. And remember, for sumo, it's Tachiai.